On a rain-lashed night at the Silver Creek Dam, a frantic father was in despair as the emergency sluice gate controls failed, threatening to flood the valley below. The engineers were helpless, and the technical team was overwhelmed. In a desperate moment, the site foreman called a young Navajo woman from the reservation, known for her strange gift with water and wiring. But without any formal degree, she was stopped by corporate security and mocked by the lead engineer. Yet, as the alarm sirens wailed, the foreman let her try. And within minutes she stunned everyone. What she didn't know was that the father pleading for their help was the state governor. Before we go back, let me know where you're watching from and subscribe, because tomorrow I've got something extra special for you. Kaya Begay had always heard the water speak. At 19, in the small, wind-scoured town of Desert Springs, Arizona, she was already known for an uncanny ability to diagnose and mend any system that involved water flow. This talent wasn't from any engineering school. It was born from a lifetime of listening to her grandfather's stories, from watching the way rain carved patterns in the red rock, and from countless hours tinkering with the aging irrigation pumps that sustained her community's patch of green. Desert Springs was a town of contrasts. On one side of the highway was the reservation, a tapestry of resilient families and deep-rooted history. On the other, the bustling modern world, with its corporate offices and gated communities. The line between them was rarely spoken of but always felt. Kaya, with her dark braids and hands stained with earth and grease, knew the unspoken rules that defined where she belonged. Her grandfather, Thomas, had been her anchor since her parents passed. He was a man of few words, but his eyes held the wisdom of generations, a quiet pride that had weathered decades of being overlooked. Together they lived in a modest home that smelled of sage and soldering iron. Despite their limited means, Thomas never let Kaya forget that her gift was a responsibility, to her people, to the land, and to the truth in her hands. The world outside the reservation, however, was less forgiving. Kaya had learned that no matter how intuitive her understanding of pressure and flow, her age and her heritage were often the first things people saw. Just last month, a representative from the State Water Board had dismissed her concerns about a weakening levee, only to later quietly implement her suggested reinforcement after a minor breach. These quiet indignities were a constant hum in the background of her life. Prejudice here wasn't always a shout. It was the condescending smile, the pat on the head, the assumption that her knowledge was folklore, not science. Yet Kaya's spirit was as unyielding as the desert mesquite. She found her purpose in the hum of a working pump and the grateful smiles of elders who could finally water their gardens. The locals started calling her the water whisperer, a quiet acknowledgement that she could fix what the accredited engineers could not. On the night the storm hit, the phone in her workshop rang with a sharp, urgent trill. It was Ben Carter, a construction foreman she'd helped once with a bulky dewatering pump. His voice was tight with panic. The primary and backup controls for the Silver Creek Dam's sluice gates had failed. The reservoir was rising fast, and the valley below, home to thousands, was in imminent danger. Their engineers were locked out of the system. He needed her, protocols be damned. Driving her grandfather's old truck through the torrential rain, Kaya felt a familiar knot of anxiety and resolve. The dam was a symbol of modern power, a concrete giant that had, decades ago, displaced part of her own community. Stepping onto its administration grounds felt like crossing into a foreign land. At the security checkpoint, a guard named Evans stepped under an umbrella, his gaze sweeping over her rain-soaked jeans and the handmade toolkit she carried. "Facility is restricted, miss. Authorized personnel only," he said, his voice a flat, bureaucratic wall. "I'm here for Ben Carter," Kaya replied, forcing her voice steady. "There's a problem with the sluice gates." Evans's eyes narrowed. "We have engineers for that. Do you have an ID? A badge?" Before the standoff could escalate, Ben Carter appeared, his face pale under the harsh security lights. "Evans, she's with me. She's our only shot. Ben, you know the rules. No clearance, no access. I can't let some unvetted civilian near critical infrastructure. The critical infrastructure is about to fail and flood 3 towns. Ben shot back. "I'm authorizing it." On my head. With a reluctant sigh, Evans stepped aside, his suspicious eyes never leaving Kaya as they hurried into the nerve center of the dam. The control room was a scene of organized chaos. Technicians typed frantically at consoles, their screens flashing with red error messages. In the center stood lead engineer, David Shaw, a man whose arrogance was barely contained by his crisply pressed shirt. "Ben, who is this?" Shaw snapped, his eyes raking over Kaya with undisguised contempt. "This is no place for a field trip. This is Kaya Begay. She understands these old hydraulic electrical systems better than anyone," Ben said. Shaw let out a short, derisive laugh. "These are proprietary, $1 million systems, not a reservation sprinkler. We don't need a mystic messing with things she can't possibly comprehend." The air grew thick with tension. All eyes turned to Kaya, whose heart hammered against her ribs. She could feel the weight of their doubt, the invisible walls of prejudice closing in. "Let her try," a new voice cut through. It was the site director, a woman named Alicia Vance, her face etched with the gravity of the situation. "We have 10 minutes before we hit critical capacity. Do what you can." Kaya moved to the main control panel, her fingers hovering over the switches. She closed her eyes for a second, not in prayer, but in listening, to the hum of the machinery, the vibration in the floor, the distant roar of the overwhelmed spillway. It was a language only she understood. Shaw hovered, a vulture waiting for failure. "The diagnostics show a complete logic board failure. It's fried. You're wasting time." Kaya ignored him. Her fingers traced a series of wires leading to a secondary, manual override panel, a relic from the dam's initial construction, often overlooked in digital schematics. She spotted it, a corroded relay and a bypass switch that had been tripped, likely by a power surge from the storm. The computer was trying to send commands through a dead channel. "This isn't a software problem," she said, her voice calm. "It's a mechanical one. The storm surge tripped the primary safety here." She pointed to the hidden panel. "The system thinks it's protecting itself from a short by locking out, but it strangled the main command. That's an auxiliary panel. It's not even in the active schematic." Shaw protested, but his voice had lost its certainty. "Exactly," Kaya said. She reached into her toolkit, pulling out a set of specialized drivers. With practiced, precise movements, she reset the bypass, cleaned the corrosion from the relay contacts, and rerouted the command signal. "For God's sake, you're jury-rigging it!" Shaw exclaimed. "I'm giving you a chance," Kaya replied, her gaze never wavering from her work. She closed the final connection. For a heart-stopping moment, nothing happened. Then, a deep, groaning rumble echoed through the control room as, on the massive monitoring screen, the sluice gates began to slowly, steadily open. The reservoir pressure began to drop. A collective exhale filled the room. The frantic red lights on the consoles blinked back to a steady, calming green. Alicia Vance placed a hand on Kaya's shoulder, her eyes wide with relief and newfound respect. "You did it!" Shaw was silent, his face a mask of stunned defeat. But as Kaya looked out the rain-streaked window at the controlled rush of water, she knew this was more than just a fixed machine. It was a crack in the foundation of doubt they had built around her. She had faced down their skepticism and prejudice with nothing but skill and calm determination. The road ahead was still long, filled with unseen barriers and battles. But in that moment, standing in the heart of the concrete giant, a quiet hope took root. A hope that her hands, which understood the voice of the water and the flow of the current, could also help redirect the flow of opportunity and respect for her people. The call to action had been answered, and the first line in a new story had been drawn. Thank you for journeying through this story with me. Your time and engagement are deeply appreciated. If this tale of quiet courage and breaking barriers resonated with you, please consider giving it a like and subscribing. Your support helps bring more of these meaningful narratives to light. Let me know where in the world you're watching from and what you thought in the comments below. Until next time, take care.